We had terrible trouble parking. I told David to park opposite the supermarket because the spaces are bigger, but he said no, he hates using the elevator. Anyway, I don't mind elevators, so we parked in the other car park, and it took ages to get to the center.
Well, it picked up a bit this afternoon, didn't it? I thought it would drizzle all day, but it's only a bit showery now. That's good. Last week was a different kettle of fish though. I thought this would be called off, but luckily it's just a bit overcast now.
Our sales trebled last month thanks to AI, which was surprising, because last January, we were only at 50% and we need to get to 75%, so we evaluated last February's to see where we had gone wrong, and then March, and April, and then we looked at the sales report at end of year.
I wanted to paint the bathroom pink, but Dan said, no, he would rather it was blue, and I said, why don't you like pink? And he said, I don't mind it, I just don't want to paint the bathroom pink, and then we agreed on red, because red has both blue and pink.
Hi, thanks for joining me for another session today. As you've probably guessed, we're going to be looking at the topic of small talk. What is small talk? Why do we use it? Its importance in social and business settings. As you probably gathered from my short video, I may have gone a little over the top with the boredom there, but small talk can be quite boring and dull. And it's designed to be. That's exactly what it is. It's safe. It's not going to offend anybody. It's meant to be very easy conversation that you can use when you're in business settings, maybe like a networking event, or actually in social settings as well. I would say it's probably more commonly used in business settings, but that doesn't mean you can't use it in a social environment. What is it? Why do we use it? Small talk is small. It means superficial, not particularly important conversation that you can have with somebody you don't know or don't know very well. It allows you to break the ice with people, and it allows you to network with people. So that's what it's designed to do. There are three topics we're going to look at today that we would use as subjects for small talk, three common ones. The first one is journeys and transport. This is very commonly used because we like to talk about journeys, we like to talk about how our journey was. And I've had students who will say, I travelled by train. That's all I can say. And actually, if you're taking your IELTS test, then you know that sometimes these everyday questions about journeys, for example, may come up, certainly as a part one question. So you could actually use some of the phrases today for that as well. But if somebody asks you about your journey, you can reply by saying that it was fine, that it was okay. You might use an idiomatic expression like it was plain sailing, and that basically means that nothing went wrong, there were no delays, it was all okay. On the other hand, if it was bad, you might say it was a nightmare journey, and then you could give details why. You might have to have been waiting around for a bus, for example. So actually, you could kill, we use the term kill, to get rid of 1 minute or 2 minutes of conversation just talking about that. That would lead you nicely into the topic of weather, which you can also bring alongside transport. You can talk about how was the weather? Was it a nice day to get the bus? Were you glad it wasn't raining because you were waiting for a bus at the bus stop? So once again, this type of conversation can fill quite a few minutes. We talk about the weather a lot in the UK because it's so changeable. So we say things like, oh, it was better than expected, or oh, it's turned out nice, or oh, it's a glorious day, isn't it? This wasn't on the forecast, for example. So we often like to talk about comparing the weather with the forecast from the night before. And again, it kills a little bit more time. The third topic we use a lot in small talk, we've covered journeys and transport and weather, would be your work. Your work is very important in a business setting, but equally you might use it in a social setting. People say things like, what do you do? What do you do? And it means, what's your job? What's your job? Are you a doctor? Are you a shop owner? You're a taxi driver? What do you do? if you're in a business environment, you will give more detail about what you do because presumably it's a conference or a networking thing. So you might say what department you work in and a brief details of your kind of average day, you know. But what I'd like to move on to is how you can respond to someone who's talking about their work, because with small talk, it's not just about you producing the dialogue, it's about you responding to people as well. So if somebody tells you their job, and let's imagine it's a little bit boring, you can say things like, oh, I see, that's very interesting, or, you know, even if it isn't, or that must be stressful. How do you manage your stress? Or I couldn't do that, I admire you. So you're actually giving a compliment to that person by sounding interested in their work, and the short phrases we've just used help to maintain that conversation so somebody knows you're listening, basically. So yes, small talk phrases can include quite short sentences, but things like, oh, I understand, oh, I see, oh, that's interesting. They might sound boring, but actually they're very useful. And what can happen is once you start to use small talk, you may find that you can then move into slightly more deeper, meaningful conversations with people that become a little bit more interesting. But to begin with, you can talk about the weather, your journey, a little bit about what you do. You can ask them questions about their journey, what they do. And this is a really prime example of small talk conversation in English. As always, I hope it's been helpful. Consider subscribing if you enjoyed it, and watch out for new videos. I aim to update regularly. So yeah, thank you for joining me, and please take care.